My beloved child, do not scroll away from this moment. Stay with me, because there is something I want your heart to hear. You have spent too many nights wondering why this connection has felt so powerful and yet so difficult to understand. You have asked me questions in the silence that you were afraid to ask anyone else. You have wondered why someone could feel so close to your spirit and yet sometimes seem so far away in their actions. You have wondered whether you imagined the signs, whether you misunderstood the connection, whether the silence meant rejection, and whether the distance meant they had forgotten you. But I tell you now, my beloved child, not everything that has been silent has been empty. There are feelings that have remained unspoken, thoughts that have been hidden behind ordinary conversations, and truths that someone has tried desperately to keep locked inside their heart. And now, what has been buried is beginning to rise. What has been avoided is demanding to be faced. Your soulmate cannot continue pretending that nothing is happening inside them. The truth they have been keeping secret is coming closer to the surface. I have seen the moments you never saw. I have seen them think about you when nobody was watching. I have seen them begin to type words and then erase them. I have seen them try to convince themselves that they could simply move forward without confronting what they truly feel. They tried to silence the questions inside their own heart. They tried to distract themselves with responsibilities, conversations, routines, and people who knew nothing about the battle taking place within them. But there are some truths that become heavier when they are hidden. There are some emotions that do not disappear simply because someone refuses to name them. And my child, this is what has been happening. Something inside them has been growing stronger than their ability to hide it. Listen carefully. The secret is not merely that they think about you. It goes deeper than that. They have been afraid of how deeply you affect them. Your presence awakened something they were not prepared to confront. When you entered their emotional world, you touched places they had protected for a long time. You made them question choices they once believed were settled. You made them look at themselves differently. And perhaps without even realizing it, you became a mirror reflecting the parts of their heart they had avoided. That frightened them. They may have pulled away, acted uncertain, or behaved as though the connection meant less than it actually did because admitting the truth would have required vulnerability. My beloved child, sometimes a person hides their feelings not because those feelings are weak, but because they are powerful enough to change everything. They begin thinking, what happens if I admit this? What happens if I tell them? What happens if I have misunderstood? What happens if they reject me? What happens if my life changes? Fear creates 1,000 questions where love wants to speak one simple truth. And that is where this person has been standing. Between what their heart knows and what their fear allows them to admit. You have felt this tension too. There were moments when something inside you whispered that there was more happening than you could see. You could not always explain it. Perhaps a memory of them suddenly appeared when you were focused on something completely different. Perhaps a dream brought emotions back to the surface. Perhaps you heard a song or saw something that reminded you of them. But I do not want you to turn every coincidence into a prediction, my child. I want you grounded in wisdom. Signs may encourage reflection, but truth must eventually reveal itself through honesty, consistency, and action. You deserve something clearer than endless guessing. And this is why the season ahead matters. The person connected to your heart is reaching a point where silence no longer feels safe. They once believed silence protected them. Now silence is becoming uncomfortable. Every time they suppress what they want to say, the words return. Every time they convince themselves that they should forget the connection, another memory rises. Every time they attempt to bury their emotions, they discover those emotions waiting beneath the surface. There is something else I want you to understand. Do not chase a confession. Do not force someone to reveal what they are not ready to reveal. Do not abandon your peace trying to decode another person's silence. If something is true, allow truth to carry its own weight. Your responsibility is not to manipulate an outcome. Your responsibility is to remain honest about your own heart while keeping your dignity intact. My beloved child, before I reveal more, if these words are bringing peace to your heart and you want to continue receiving messages of faith, love, hope, and encouragement, subscribe to this channel and stay connected. Let this become a place where, whenever the noise of the world becomes too loud, you can return and remember that you are never beyond the reach of hope. And now stay with me, because what I am about to tell you goes deeper. Your soulmate's hidden truth involves more than affection. They have been carrying regret. There are things they wish they had handled differently. There are conversations they replay in their mind. There are moments when they wish they had spoken instead of remaining quiet. They remember times when you offered warmth and they responded with distance. They remember moments when they could have made their intentions clearer but allowed confusion to remain. And somewhere inside, they know that their silence may have hurt you. They did not necessarily understand the consequences while it was happening. Fear has a way of convincing people that avoidance is easier. But eventually the heart asks for accountability. They are beginning to realize that while they were protecting themselves, they may have been pushing away someone they genuinely cared about. My child, I saw the nights when you questioned yourself because of this. I saw you wondering whether you were too much or not enough. I saw the temptation to measure your worth according to another person's ability to communicate. But hear me. Another person's confusion is not the measurement of your value. Someone's inability to express love clearly does not mean you were unworthy of receiving clear love. You must remember this when the truth begins coming out. Because when someone finally opens their heart after remaining silent for a long time, it can be tempting to forget everything simply because you finally received the words you wanted. But words are only the beginning. Listen to what they say, yes, but also watch what follows. Does honesty become consistency? Does regret become change? Does affection become respect? Does the confession create clarity instead of another cycle of uncertainty? I want love to strengthen you, not consume your peace. And your soulmate is learning this lesson too. They have been discovering that genuine connection cannot survive forever behind masks. At some point, they must choose between protecting their fear and speaking their truth. They cannot continue asking their heart to remain silent while expecting the feelings to disappear. There may have been outside pressures influencing them as well, expectations, responsibilities, opinions, old wounds, or unfinished chapters from their past. They may have worried about what others would think. They may have wondered whether the timing was wrong. They may even have tried to convince themselves that choosing what was familiar would be easier than risking something emotionally profound. But familiar does not always mean peaceful. And avoidance does not always mean freedom. Sometimes the very thing a person runs from follows them internally because the real issue was never outside them. The real issue was fear. My beloved child, something has recently begun changing inside this person. A realization has been forming. They are starting to understand that waiting forever could cost them the opportunity to ever tell you what was true. They are realizing that you are not required to remain emotionally available forever while they decide what they want. You have your own journey. You have your own future. You are allowed to grow, heal, and continue living. And the possibility of losing their opportunity to speak has shaken them. Imagine carrying words in your heart and suddenly realizing the person you wanted to tell might eventually stop waiting to hear them. That realization can wake someone up. This is where the pressure is building. They are beginning to understand that someday they may look back and ask themselves, "Why didn't I just tell the truth?" That question frightens them more now than it once did. They have rehearsed conversations in their mind. They have imagined what they would say if they finally had the courage. They wonder how you would respond. Would you be angry? Would you listen? Would you believe them? Would you still care? Or has too much time passed? And beneath all those questions is the truth they have struggled to admit. You mattered more than they showed. Your absence affected them more than they admitted. Your connection touched them more deeply than their behavior revealed. And they are tired of pretending otherwise. But my child, I want you to remain calm. Do not build your entire tomorrow around what another person might do. Continue living. Continue growing. Continue becoming stronger. Let anyone who wants a place in your life meet you with truth. Love should not require you to abandon yourself. You can forgive without surrendering your boundaries. You can listen without immediately agreeing. You can care deeply and still ask for clarity. You can believe that people change while allowing their actions to demonstrate that change. This is maturity, my beloved child. And perhaps this season has not merely been preparing them to speak. Perhaps it has also been preparing you to hear differently. Before, you may have wanted only the confession. Now you are beginning to understand that what matters is what comes after it. Before, you may have prayed simply for them to return. Now your heart is learning to pray for something healthier: truth, peace, mutual respect, courage, and consistency. That growth matters. So when the hidden truth begins coming out, do not respond from panic. Do not rush because you fear losing them. What is genuine does not need manipulation. Listen. Observe. Pray. Give yourself permission to process what you hear. There is still something they have not told you, something connected to why they pulled away when their feelings were becoming stronger. And this is the part that has weighed heavily on them, because admitting it means admitting that some of the distance you experienced was intentional, not because they felt nothing, but because they were afraid of feeling too much. They believed distance would give them control. Instead, distance taught them what your presence meant. They thought silence would make the feelings disappear. Instead, silence made them hear their own heart more clearly. They thought time would erase what they felt. Instead, time forced them to confront it. And now the walls they built are becoming harder to maintain. My beloved child, remember these words tonight: you do not need to chase what is meant to approach you honestly. You do not need to beg someone to recognize your value. You do not need to prove that your heart deserves careful treatment. Let truth come into the light, and when it does, judge it not merely by how beautiful it sounds, but by the fruit it produces. Something is shifting inside this connection. A truth that has been held back is pressing toward expression. A heart that has relied on silence is beginning to understand the cost of remaining silent. And what they are most afraid to admit is also what their heart keeps repeating. They never stopped caring the way they pretended they did. But there is another secret beneath that secret, one connected to the exact moment they realized they might truly lose you. And my beloved child, that moment changed something inside them that they can no longer undo. My beloved child, stay with me, because now I want to take you deeper into what has been happening inside the heart of the person you love. I told you there was another secret beneath the secret, something connected to the moment they realized they could truly lose you, and this is where everything began to change. There was a moment, perhaps one you knew nothing about, when the possibility of you moving forward without them suddenly became real in their mind. Until then, they had quietly assumed there would always be more time. More time to explain. More time to become courageous. More time to figure out what they wanted. More time to return when everything felt safer. But, my beloved child, time does not stand still simply because someone is afraid to make a decision. And when they finally understood that your life was continuing, something inside them became unsettled. Listen closely to me. They began thinking about what it would feel like if one day they reached for you and discovered that your heart was no longer waiting in the same place. They imagined seeing you peaceful without them. They imagined you building a life where their silence no longer had the power to disturb you. They imagined someone else recognizing the qualities in you that they had been too frightened to openly cherish. And suddenly, their strategy of waiting no longer felt safe. They had convinced themselves that distance gave them control. They thought, I can deal with these feelings later. But when they imagined losing access to you completely, they realized that control had always been an illusion. My child, understand what happened next. They started remembering details. Not only the dramatic moments. The little ones. Your voice. The way you listened. The kindness you offered without demanding anything in return. Something you said casually that remained with them long after the conversation ended. The way you could somehow sense when something was wrong even when they insisted they were fine. They began remembering moments they had previously pushed aside because remembering you honestly meant confronting their feelings honestly. And those memories became difficult to silence. They wondered whether you remembered them too. They wondered whether you ever thought about reaching out. They wondered whether the distance had hurt you more deeply than you allowed them to see. And then came the question they were most afraid to ask themselves: what if I waited too long? My beloved child, that question opened a door inside them. Because suddenly they were forced to look at their own behavior instead of blaming circumstances. They could no longer tell themselves that everything happened because of timing, responsibilities, confusion, or outside pressure. Somewhere within their heart, they knew there had been opportunities to be honest. And they had chosen fear. This realization has not been comfortable. There is regret here. There is a part of them that wishes they could return to certain moments and respond differently. If they could return to a conversation where they acted cold, they would choose warmth. If they could return to a moment when you needed reassurance, they would speak instead of disappearing. If they could return to a time when pride prevented them from admitting what they felt, they would lower the walls. But life does not give us the power to rewrite yesterday. It gives us the opportunity to become different tomorrow. And this is the crossroads standing before them. My beloved child, I want you to understand something important before you hear anything from this person. Their regret is not your responsibility to repair. Their emotions are not yours to manage. If they come forward, allow them to carry the responsibility of communicating clearly. You have spent enough time interpreting silence. You should not have to translate another person's uncertainty forever. If they have something to say, let them say it. If they have something to explain, let them explain it. If they want another opportunity, let their behavior show why that opportunity should be considered. Your heart can remain compassionate without becoming careless. Because you have changed too, my child. The version of you who first encountered this connection may have accepted confusion simply because the feelings were strong. You may have believed that intensity alone meant destiny. But you have learned that powerful feelings and healthy relationships are not automatically the same thing. Healthy love requires honesty. Healthy love requires communication. Healthy love requires mutual effort. And above all, healthy love should make room for peace. This person is beginning to understand that if they truly want you in their life, they cannot return with the same patterns that created the distance. Something must change. And that is where the hidden truth becomes even deeper. My beloved child, part of what they have been keeping secret is that they have compared other connections to what they felt with you. They tried to recreate the comfort. It was not the same. They tried to find the same emotional recognition. Something was missing. They tried to convince themselves that what existed between you was ordinary, but ordinary things do not usually remain in the heart this way. And slowly they began recognizing something they had resisted. What they felt with you affected them differently. But I do not tell you this so you will place yourself above anyone else. Love is not a competition. Another person does not need to lose for you to be valuable. I tell you because I want you to understand why this individual has struggled so much to move past what remained unresolved. They never gave the truth a proper ending. They buried it instead. And buried emotions have a way of returning when the heart becomes quiet. There were moments when they almost contacted you. Their hand reached for the phone. Your name came to mind. They imagined sending something simple, perhaps nothing dramatic at first, because they did not know how to begin the conversation they truly wanted to have. How have you been? I was thinking about you. Can we talk? Simple words carrying a much larger confession. But fear stopped them. What if they ignore me? What if they're angry? What if they have moved on? What if I finally tell them everything and discover I no longer have a place in their heart? My beloved child, these questions have kept them silent longer than they expected. Yet something is different now. The fear of speaking is beginning to become smaller than the fear of never speaking at all. That is the shift. For a long time they asked, what could happen if I tell the truth? Now they are beginning to ask, what will happen if I don't? And those are two very different questions. One creates avoidance. The other creates courage. My child, I cannot promise you the exact words another human being will choose or the exact moment they will choose them. Free will matters. People make their own decisions. But I can tell you how to prepare your heart whenever truth comes toward you. Receive it without abandoning your wisdom. Do not immediately decide your future in one emotional conversation. Let the truth breathe. Let actions follow. Let time reveal whether the confession represents genuine transformation or merely temporary emotion. Because you deserve more than a beautiful apology followed by the same painful behavior. You deserve consistency. And somewhere inside, they know this. That is why what they want to tell you feels so difficult. They know they cannot simply appear and pretend nothing happened. They know questions may need answers. They know trust may need rebuilding. They know that if they ask you to open your heart again, they must be prepared to show you something different. And perhaps the greatest secret they have been hiding is not merely, I still care about you. It is this. I was afraid because what I felt for you became real. They did not know how to handle real. Real required vulnerability. Real meant the possibility of rejection. Real meant admitting that another human being had become important enough to hurt them. Real meant losing control. So instead of moving toward the feeling, they stepped away from it. But distance did not protect them from the truth. It only delayed the moment when they would have to face it. My beloved child, there is something I want you to release tonight. Release the need to know exactly when everything will happen. Release the temptation to check constantly for evidence. Release the idea that every notification must be them, every song must be a sign, or every coincidence must predict their return. Your peace is too precious to live on constant alert. Continue your life. Laugh. Rest. Create. Spend time with people who bring goodness into your world. Take care of the dreams I placed inside you that have nothing to do with romance. Your soulmate journey should never become the entire definition of your existence. You were created for more than waiting. And strangely, my child, when you stop living as though your life is paused, you begin seeing relationships more clearly. You stop asking, will they choose me? And begin asking, are we choosing each other? You stop asking, do they miss me? And begin asking, can they communicate honestly with me? You stop asking, is this destined? And begin asking, is this loving, respectful, peaceful, and true? Those questions will protect your heart. Because if this person finally stands before you emotionally exposed and tells you everything they have been hiding, you need the strength to hear both their words and your own inner wisdom. You may discover that you still love them deeply. You may discover that forgiveness comes naturally. You may also discover that you need time. All of those responses are allowed. There is no need to rush. My beloved child, remember. Reconciliation is not proven by a confession. It is built through repeated honesty. And this person is beginning to understand what rebuilding would require. They know that saying, I was scared, cannot erase everything. They know that saying, "I missed you," cannot automatically restore trust. They know that saying, "I love you," must eventually become something you can experience through their actions. This awareness is changing the way they think about approaching you. They do not only want to tell you what they felt. They want you to understand why they hid it. They want to explain why they became distant at the exact moment you expected them to move closer. And here is the truth, my beloved child, closeness triggered wounds inside them they had never properly healed. You did not create those wounds. You simply came close enough for them to notice they existed. Your connection challenged the defenses they had spent years building. They wanted love, but when love began requiring vulnerability, their old fears returned. Fear of abandonment. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being enough. Fear of repeating painful experiences from the past. So they protected themselves. Unfortunately, in protecting themselves, they hurt the connection. Now they can finally see the contradiction. They ran because they cared. They became silent because the words mattered. They created distance because closeness frightened them. But, my child, understanding why someone behaved a certain way does not mean you must accept unhealthy behavior forever. Compassion and boundaries can exist together. You can say, "I understand why you were afraid," and still say, "I need consistency now." You can say, "I forgive you," while also saying, "Trust will take time." You can say, "I still care," without saying, "Everything immediately returns to how it was." This is the wisdom I want you to carry. Because the truth is coming closer to the surface. The mask is becoming exhausting. The silence is becoming heavier. And the possibility of losing you without ever telling you what was truly inside their heart is becoming unbearable. There is one conversation they have imagined again and again. In that conversation, they finally stop pretending. They finally admit what the distance really meant. They finally tell you what happened inside them during the period when you believed they had forgotten. But there is one final part they are still terrified to reveal. It concerns a decision they almost made because they believed being without you would be easier than facing you. They came closer to making that decision than you realize. And then something happened, something that made them stop and question everything. My beloved child, that moment is the reason the truth can no longer remain hidden. Because after what they realized, pretending not to love you became harder than finally admitting that they do. My beloved child, listen to me carefully now, because we have reached the part they have tried hardest to keep hidden. I told you there was a decision they almost made because they believed living without you would somehow be easier than facing the truth of what they felt. They thought that if they closed the door completely, if they convinced themselves there was no future here, if they buried the memories deeply enough, eventually their heart would become quiet. For a moment, they almost chose that path. They almost accepted a future in which you became someone they once knew, someone they would occasionally remember but never reach for again. They told themselves this would be easier. They tried to call it maturity. They tried to call it moving on. They tried to call it acceptance. But deep inside, my child, they knew something was unfinished. Then something happened within them. It was not necessarily one dramatic event that everyone around them could see. Sometimes the greatest turning points happen silently. Sometimes a person can be sitting alone, driving down an ordinary road, hearing a familiar song, looking through old memories, or simply lying awake at night when suddenly the truth they have been avoiding becomes impossible to escape. That moment came for them. And in that moment, they realized something frightening. They could build a life without you, but building a life without you would not automatically erase what they felt for you. That realization stopped them. My beloved child, they had been waiting for their feelings to disappear. They believed enough distance would do the work. They believed silence would weaken the connection. They believed that if they filled their days with enough distractions, eventually your memory would lose its emotional weight. But instead, something unexpected happened. The longer they remained silent, the more clearly they began understanding what your presence had meant. When you were close, they could take certain things for granted. Your attention was there. Your kindness was available. Your energy was familiar. They did not fully understand the value of what they were receiving because they assumed there would always be another opportunity. Distance changed that. Suddenly they noticed the absence of things they once overlooked. They missed being understood. They missed knowing there was someone who could see through their defenses. They missed the feeling of speaking to someone who seemed to understand what was underneath their words. And, my child, they began realizing that what they missed was not simply attention. They missed you. That difference became impossible to ignore. Anyone can provide attention. Anyone can send a message. Anyone can temporarily fill empty space. But emotional recognition is different. When someone has truly touched a hidden place in the heart, substitutes often reveal rather than erase the original connection. This is what began happening. They compared without intending to compare. A conversation would happen, and somewhere inside they would remember how differently they could speak with you. Someone would laugh, and your laughter would unexpectedly come to mind. They would experience something important and instinctively think, I wish I could tell them. And every time that happened, another piece of the wall weakened. My beloved child, this does not mean you should sit waiting for them. I want you to hear me clearly. Their realization belongs to their journey. Your responsibility is to continue yours. Do not freeze your life because someone else is finally learning lessons you had to learn through pain. You have already spent enough emotional energy wondering. Now let truth do the traveling. If they truly want to speak, let them find courage. If they truly want to repair what was damaged, let them bring consistency. If they truly love you, let love become visible through honesty, responsibility, patience, and respect. You do not have to drag the truth out of anyone. My child, the old version of you might have immediately run toward them if you knew what was happening inside their heart. You might have wanted to rescue them from their fear. You might have sent the message first simply to make things easier. But you are learning something now. Sometimes allowing another person to find their own courage is an act of love. They need to choose honesty because they are ready to become honest, not merely because you made honesty convenient for them. And this is where their greatest battle is happening. They have imagined your reaction countless times. Sometimes they imagine you smiling and saying, I knew. Sometimes they imagine tears. Sometimes they imagine anger. But the possibility that frightens them most is your calmness. Why? Because calmness could mean you have healed. Calmness could mean they no longer have the emotional power they once had. Calmness could mean that while they were delaying, you learned how to live without answers. And my beloved child, in many ways, you have. You may still care. You may still wonder. You may still carry tenderness for this person. But something inside you has been changing too. You are beginning to understand that you can love someone without abandoning yourself. You can miss someone without chasing them. You can hope for reconciliation without making reconciliation the condition for your happiness. That is strength. And they can feel that something is different, even if they cannot explain it. They are beginning to sense that the door they assumed would remain open forever cannot be taken for granted. This is why urgency has entered their heart. Not panic. Not manipulation. Something deeper. Awareness. They are becoming aware that opportunities have seasons. They are becoming aware that people eventually stop waiting for clarity. They are becoming aware that love requires participation. And they are becoming aware that their silence has communicated something, even if it was not what they intended to communicate. My child, silence speaks. When someone repeatedly chooses silence, the other person eventually has to make decisions based on what is actually being offered, not what might secretly exist inside another person's heart. Your soulmate is finally recognizing this. They thought, they know how I feel. But then another thought came. What if they don't? That question disturbed them. Because how could you know what they refuse to say? How could you understand intentions they refuse to demonstrate? How could you trust feelings they kept hidden? Suddenly they began seeing the connection from your side. And that changed everything. They remembered times when you were vulnerable. They remembered the questions behind your eyes. They remembered moments when you gave them opportunities to speak honestly. And they remembered choosing silence. My beloved child, regret entered their heart not because I wanted them to suffer, but because sometimes regret becomes a teacher. It shows us where fear controlled decisions that love should have guided. They started asking themselves difficult questions. Why did I push them away? Why did I pretend I didn't care? Why was I so afraid to admit what was obvious inside me? And eventually they reached an answer they did not expect. They were not afraid because you were wrong for them. They were afraid because being deeply known felt dangerous. You saw more than they wanted anyone to see. You noticed when their smile was forced. You sensed when something was wrong. You could sometimes recognize their emotional distance before they admitted they were pulling away. That kind of closeness made them feel exposed. And they confused being exposed with being unsafe. My child, wounds can do this. A person who has been hurt may build walls so strong that when genuine care arrives, they do not know whether to welcome it or defend themselves from it. Your soulmate's defenses activated. They began questioning everything. They looked for reasons why it could not work. They focused on differences. They imagined future problems. They allowed outside circumstances to become excuses. Because if they could convince themselves the connection was impossible, they would not have to risk their heart. But there was one problem. Their heart never agreed with the argument their fear created. This is the secret they can no longer hide from themselves. They tried to reason their way out of feeling. They failed. They tried to distract their way out of remembering. They failed. They tried to wait until the connection meant nothing. And my beloved child, they discovered that time did not erase the truth. It clarified it. Now they are standing in a place where they must choose. They can continue protecting their pride and live with the question of what might have happened. Or they can become vulnerable and finally tell you what they should have told you long ago. That choice belongs to them. But your choice belongs to you. And I want you ready for that. If they return with honesty, listen. If they apologize sincerely, allow yourself to receive the apology without feeling obligated to make an immediate decision. If they tell you they never stopped loving you, you are allowed to feel whatever rises inside your heart. But then ask yourself what matters most. What are they prepared to do differently? Because love that remains only a feeling can still create pain. Love becomes safe when it learns responsibility. My beloved child, I know part of you wants to hear the words. You have waited for clarity. You have wondered whether you misunderstood everything. But the clarity you truly need is larger than a confession. You need to know whether this person can stand beside you when things become uncomfortable instead of disappearing. You need to know whether they can communicate when fear rises. You need to know whether they can protect the connection with honesty instead of testing it with silence. And they know these questions are waiting. That is one reason they hesitate. They understand that returning means facing what happened. They cannot simply say, "I missed you," and expect the past to disappear. They may need to answer why they left you confused. They may need to admit where pride controlled them. They may need to acknowledge that their silence caused pain. And, my child, accountability is frightening when someone has spent a long time avoiding vulnerability. But something inside them is becoming stronger than that fear. The thought of never telling you has begun hurting more than the thought of admitting everything. This is the turning point. They have rehearsed the truth privately. They have imagined saying your name. They have imagined looking at you and finally admitting, "I was scared." Then another sentence follows. "I thought I could forget this." And another. "I couldn't." But there is one confession even deeper than those words. It is connected to something they did during the period of separation, something they believed would prove to themselves that they had moved on. Instead, it showed them exactly how unresolved their feelings for you remained. And this is the part they are ashamed to admit. My beloved child, do not become afraid when you hear the word ashamed. It does not automatically mean betrayal or something terrible. Sometimes people feel shame simply because they acted against what their heart knew was true. They made a choice intended to close the chapter. But instead of closure, the choice brought comparison. Instead of peace, it brought realization. Instead of making them forget you, it made your place in their heart more obvious. And afterward, they sat with a truth they could no longer deny. They had been trying to replace a feeling they never properly faced. That realization broke something open inside them. Suddenly the question was no longer whether they cared about you. They knew they did. The question became whether they were courageous enough to do something about it. My beloved child, this is why I keep telling you not to chase. This lesson is theirs to complete. Let them discover whether their courage is stronger than their fear. Meanwhile, you continue becoming the person who no longer settles for half-love, hidden love, uncertain love, or love that only exists in imagination. You deserve something that can stand in daylight. Something that can speak. Something that can choose. Something that can remain consistent even after the emotional confession is over. So tonight, release the pressure from your heart. You do not need to predict tomorrow. You do not need to search every little thing for confirmation. If truth is coming, let truth arrive as truth. And when it does, my child, you will be stronger than you were before. You will not be listening only with longing. You will be listening with wisdom. Because there is still one thing they have not admitted, even to themselves completely. They do not simply fear losing you. They fear that they already lost the version of you who would have accepted anything just to keep them close. And they are right. That version of you is disappearing. You have learned too much. You have grown too much. You have begun remembering your worth. If they want to meet you now, they will have to meet the stronger version of you. And somewhere deep within their heart, they know it. That is why their next decision matters so much. Because the secret is no longer merely trying to escape their heart. It is pushing them toward a choice. And soon they must decide whether they will finally step forward with the whole truth, or watch you continue walking toward a future that no longer waits for their silence.